Hello, my friends, and welcome to the Secrets of a Witch podcast with me, Sabrina Scott, where I talk all about life, love, healing, spirituality, witchcraft, magic, tarot, what else? Feminine energy, good vibes, how to live a life that you don't need to run away from, and how to lead a life that is infused with magical vibes. So as I'm recording this, today is Thursday, and so I don't know if you guys creeped on to my YouTube, which is youtube.com/Sabrina Scott, no M, because I guess there's less Sabrinas over there on the YouTubes. But I'm reinvigorating my weekly tarot vibe check situations. I'll be doing those live every single Tuesday of this month. We're going to try it out, see how it goes. If I get a good enough, big enough response, then it will continue kind of into infinity. So do go listen to the tarot vibe check for the week. It's pretty good. So go listen. But anyway, so today I want to talk about ancestor magic and why any of us might even give a shit about this, and why might we want to bother to connect with our ancestors at all, right? And so obviously I'm talking about this because I'm teaching a live masterclass workshop type of situation on ancestor magic at the end of the month on Sunday, October 29th. So you can attend live or get the replay, whatever. But before I even teach that, I just wanted to talk about what the hell even is ancestor magic, and why should you even care about your ancestors, which I think is a fair question. I do get a lot of inquiries about mediumship and how do I learn how to do mediumship? How do I talk to my spirits that have passed? Blah, blah, blah. Honestly, I get tons of questions about this. And unfortunately, the answer that no one really wants to hear is that, yeah, it all does kind of start with energy work, which is in my Magic Without Bullshit course, and to some extent my Tarot Without Bullshit course. But I know that not everyone wants to take a big course and might want to just start a little bit. So I wanted to talk about ancestor work explicitly, and also to answer that question of why should anyone care about this? And so let's get into it. Ancestor practice, ancestor work. What is this, first of all? So the short version is it's just connecting with those who have passed in your lineage. That can be blood ancestors. It can be, family, blood family. It can be chosen family. So maybe you're in a community. Maybe you're in a niche community. Maybe it's a religious or spiritual community. Maybe it's an identity-based community. I know a lot of queer communities can be really, really tight-knit for a variety of reasons. Maybe you see your ancestors as artists and all of this. And so it can be really complicated. I talk a lot about that and the different ways of framing lineage and ancestry in my second book, Curse and Cure: Magic for Real Life, which you can grab on Amazon. But I do want to talk about today specifically family ancestors. Right? Because let's just keep it specific. So one of the most common questions I get from people is people being like, Sabrina, my family sucks. They were shit. My dead relative is lame. They were jerks. Why should I even care? And I think that's a fair question. And there was definitely a time in my life where I felt that way. And I was just you know what? I don't even like these people. These people did me wrong. No, thank you. And I did not engage in that part of my practice. And so if you don't feel ready or interested in going here, that is okay. It's not a hierarchy of practice where you have to do ancestor stuff first. And if you don't, then your magic will never work. It's no, that just might not be your path right now. And it might not be your path ever. And that is okay. That's completely fine, right? It's not for everyone, and it's not necessarily for everyone at this exact second. But I want to talk about why, that might be something to do, even if think your relatives are a bit wacky. So why engage in ancestor-based magic? So, one of the main reasons I think is really important is that it can help heal that lineage, right? Like, if you are working with healing your recently departed who might have been having problems, like maybe they were mentally unwell, maybe they were addicted to something, and so then they were kind of crazy when they were alive, maybe your relationship wasn't that good. It is possible to have a better relationship with people after they've passed on, and I've definitely found that to be my experience. So for instance, in the past, like I was a lot closer to my grandmother, my one like dead person that I ever really knew decently in life. Like the last years of her life, I didn't really go see her that much because she had dementia and like never said anything about my tattoos, like always was lovely to me. But eventually she was overcome with dementia and like would just say really crazy stuff. And like she like would just, I don't know, it was bad. I don't really want to get into it, but it was such an extent that I was like, I'm not going to go back. Like, and I knew at one time that I visited her that was going to be the last time because of the things that were said. But I know it wasn't her. I know it was dementia, really, that was speaking. And so, unfortunately, I did have to step away from her at a certain point in life, right? But once she passed, it was really interesting. I was able to have a different relationship with her, a better relationship with her than I ever had in life, because when she passed, she kind of reverted back to the best years of herself, years before I was even alive. And yet she had all that wisdom of the older lady she was when I was a kid and then up until she passed, right? So it was really cool for me to have conversations with her in spirit. And for those of you who don't believe in spirits or mediumship, first of all, I don't know why you're here, but you guys might think I'm crazy. But it was really amazing to have some of those conversations with her after she passed, right? And to build that relationship with her spirit. And so if you have any relatives that you are not in good terms with who have passed, it is possible to repair those relationships. And you can repair those relationships very selfishly, like for your own benefit, for the ease of your own heart. That is a good enough reason to. You can also do it to heal the energies and the like repetitions that are in your family. Like some people call this like the curses that are in your family, and it's like it might not necessarily be a literal curse, but there is some science behind like epigenetics and like the traumas that live in the body and how people within the same families tend to, even if they don't know that the other person did this or that, sometimes these traumas like repeat themselves, right? Like I've heard of lineages of families where like the young daughter always gets pregnant at like 14 or something. Like the mother got pregnant and like, you know, it just is a cycle into generations. Even if the young kid getting pregnant doesn't necessarily know that that's the history. Like I've read a few books about this during my PhD because I'm doing some work on trauma and all of that. And so some of this stuff really does get locked in our cells. And so it can be this intentional healing process to work through that, to choose a different pathway forward. And so if we want to look at this selfishly, like absolutely that can benefit us, our spirits, our soul, our own impulses. That can benefit us to work through these energies if we also are attentive to the energies of our ancestors, whether recent or like historical into the past. So if we want to look at it for selfish reasons, it can absolutely be worthwhile just on that level, right? So there's that reason, the selfish kind of healing reason, which is, again, I'm not saying selfish in a bad way. Like, I think it's totally fine to want your situation to improve. There's nothing wrong with that. There's nothing wrong with wanting to heal things for your own benefit. That is okay, right? That's absolutely okay. And it will benefit your children if you have any. It will benefit everyone who interacts with you, all of these things. And then, of course, the benefit of repairing relationships with those who have passed. And maybe you never knew them. So there's also the possibility to begin new relationships with ancestors, whether recent or distant, who have passed on. doing this ancestral practice can also connect us or reconnect us to our ancestral heritage and our lineage. For those of us in North America or other settler societies, this can be a really important thing that can be very healing to reconnect with our origins. So those of you who know me, you know I'm half English, I'm half French, but obviously my last name is Scott. So we were the Scottish that went into England, obviously. And so I remember the first time I ever visited England, it was like I felt like I'd come home. I felt very much the same way in Scotland. Like, I did not expect to like Scotland, to be honest with you. I was like, seems boring. I don't really care. I guess I'm going to go for a conference. But the land spoke to me in a very deeply spiritual way, in like a way that I still can't quite comprehend. I'm still kind of working my way through that. And I'm sure we'll continue to work through that on additional trips there to connect with the land of my ancestors, and specifically the regions that the Scott clans were based out of. I want to do more research on that because I find that super interesting. But when we're attentive to all of this stuff, we have more energies to work with and work through. And we're also a lot more grounded in who we are and who our ancestors are and who we have been, where our spirit and our body comes from, not just genetically, but also spiritually and energetically. And so I was talking with someone about this the other day, like having a connection to all of this. Like, I grew up with like the family crest, like up on the, on the wall. As there is a little motto, like a slogan, there is like a crest, there's symbols, there's like the clan tartan, all of these things that are linked to my ancestry that I'm intentionally working with on a spiritual level. And I'll talk all the specifics of that in the Ancestor Magic Masterclass, so I'm not going to give away all of that here. What I really am talking about right now is just the why of it, not the how. I'll talk about the how in the class, but the why of it is like, it's so grounding, and it feels so good to me to know that even though my family history is complicated and it's not always easy to work through that, and like I do, like many of us, have very mixed feelings towards a lot of that family history, but at the same time, it feels spiritually grounding for me to have access to some of that and to make time and space for that. To make time and space to connect with heritage, even in general, as an energy on a spiritual level. And that can be very grounding and protective, right? Because if we're trying to build relationships with anything spiritual, any spiritual beings for protection, who is going to be more invested in our own safety, protection, and well-being than our ancient ancestors who want the heritage to continue? And I'm saying the most ancient because the more recent ones I know from experience, yes, not all of our parents or grandparents or great-grandparents were very kind people to their offspring, 100%. But I do find that the further back you go, often the more that energy has been healed. And so often the better intentions those farther back ancestors have for our own protection. Sometimes that's true, sometimes it isn't. It really depends like what hand you were dealt genetically in terms of family and all of that. But I do think it is something that's important to consider. And I think, especially those of us in North America, I think this is less true for maybe people in other parts of the world, but North America especially, and I guess Australia, New Zealand, places like this, like are based on this kind of melting pot migration, right? And even like my dad is literally born in England. I know some people have been in North America forever, but there is something really interesting about being able to be in touch with our identity and our history, our relationship to various types of land, all of these things. It can be very spiritually grounding. And in North America and in these settler societies, oftentimes people are very confused about their identities. Because identity can be so contentious, right? Like, and I'll do probably something about this at some point, that there's good identities, there's bad identities, there's like all of this shit that everyone's ashamed of, and it's ridiculous to me. But when we are spiritually grounded in who we are, our heritage, our ancestors, it doesn't really matter what anyone else has to say about who we are or the history of ourselves, our family, or our people. We'll be able to basically say, yep, this is who I am, this is where I come from, No, is it perfect? It's not. But I still know who I am, and I know what I'm doing about who I am and where I've been and where my people have been, and I know where I'm going, and I know how I'm healing my lineage, and I know how spiritually I'm walking in relationship with my ancestors. And I think that is a really powerful and beautiful spiritual thing that everyone can benefit from. And no matter what you believe, whether you're Christian, whether you're Wiccan, whether you're Buddhist, like, I do think this ancestor-based magic and devotional practice is very, very important. If it's something that you're open to, again, it's not for everybody. You're under no obligation to do this work. It doesn't mean you're less of a witch, doesn't mean you're less spiritual. But for anyone who does feel ready and able to step into this, it is a big reason why I no longer hold any like baggage around family-based trauma. Like, do I talk about it sometimes? Sure. But do I feel it in my body anymore? No. Like, I feel at peace with it all. And that, I think, is a large result of this spiritual work that I've been doing that I want to share with you guys in this workshop, the Ancestor Magic Workshop. Yes. So hopefully I've convinced you guys. I think it's huge, it's important, it's beautiful, it's hard, necessary work, I think. Again, it's optional. So maybe you feel called, maybe you don't. If you do feel called, please heed the call. So it will be taught live on Sunday, October 29th, I believe, 5 to 7 p.m. So it's going to be recorded, so maybe you can attend live, but if you can't attend live, don't worry, you'll get access to the recording. Everyone will get access to the recording. It will be $250, or if you take this workshop and my other one on tarot for mediumship, which is going to be taught the 30th of October, and I'll do another episode about that. It will be $350 for both, so really sweet deal. If you're interested in any of this, send me an email, ceo@sabrinamscott.com, and I'll hook you up. On Instagram, just send me a DM, Sabrina M. Scott, and I'll also put the links to all of that and how to sign up in the description for this podcast episode, wherever you're listening to it, whether it's on YouTube or whether it's just on like Apple Podcasts or Spotify or whatever. I'm going to try to put the links up in there for you guys. So I hope to catch you there. So I do think it will be really beautiful, especially this time of year. Everyone is really leaning into ancestor practice this time of year. So why not just jump into it? This is my first live workshop since April, I think, where I taught the recession vibes, recession era witchcraft. So please join me. I think it'll be super fun. Any questions, send me a hello. Again, my website is sabrinamscott.com. You can check out my really cute hoodies at shopsabrinamscott.com. Of course, my YouTube is youtube.com/sabrinascott. Instagram, Sabrina M. Scott. And of course, you can check out all of my books. They're all available on Amazon. I have my first book, Witch Body, which is a graphic novel about what it means to connect with magic in an urban contemporary context. My second book, Curse and Cure, Magic for Real Life, which is exactly what it sounds like, the witchy 101 you've been waiting for, non-denominational and appropriate for anyone, no matter what you believe. And then my 2 tarot journals, the Card of the Day Tarot Journal and the Getting to Know the Cards Tarot Journal. So check it out, friends, and I'll see you guys in the next episode. Have a lovely day. Bye!